In 1939, World War II had begun. For 6 years, humanity went through what is known as the deadliest war in history. After the death of Nazi leader Adolf Hitler on April 30th, 1945, German armed forces surrendered on May 8th. But that was not the end. Japan, on the other hand, did not surrender, continuing to fight, unaware that this decision would result in over 226,000 lives lost. On August 16, 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, and 3 days later on Nagasaki. The after effects were devastating. Radiation, scarring, the lives lost. It is a tragic and terrifying story that still affects people to this day. Japan surrendered shortly after, ending the war. March 1st, 1954, the United States dropped a hydrogen bomb for testing over the Pacific. Lucky Dragon No. 5, a fishing boat in Japan, was accidentally affected by it, as the bomb was much more powerful than scientists' expectations. So now, Japan was the first country to be affected by an atomic bomb and a hydrogen bomb, leaving Japan in a state of fear and anxiety. But why am I talking about this? You read the title. Why does this have any significance? Well, that's because these two tragic events were basically what created the Godzilla we all know and love. Hello everyone, my name is Alex, and today we'll be talking about not only a great movie, but in my opinion, a phenomenal work of allegorical art, Godzilla. Now, as much as I love giant monsters, I surprisingly never actually grew up with anything Godzilla related. I obviously knew of the character because of how iconic he is. Hell, I used to think he was real, but I never checked any of it out. The first Godzilla thing I checked out was the Godzilla in Hell comic series back in December of 2023. Then I found a Monsterverse movie bundle in the Walmart $5 bin, and the Godzilla obsession was slowly creeping up on me. Currently, I've seen about 6 or 7 Godzilla things at the time of writing, but so far, I think my favorite one, the one we'll be talking about today, is Godzilla. Wait, no, sorry, this one. This movie is, spoiler alert, it is a masterpiece. Coming to this movie right after watching Godzilla 2014 and Kong Skull Island back to back it gave me whiplash.
Were you rushing or were you dragging?
I went into the original 1945 Godzilla with certain expectations. A giant sea creature coming out of nowhere, people getting crushed, explosions, and roll credits. I was expecting your old run-of-the-mill monster movie. And what I ended up with was a gripping narrative, full of symbolism that left me absolutely jaw-dropped as it ended. Director Ishiro Honda and a few other people like Takeo Murata, if I'm not wrong, their plan was to re-invoke the anxiety that Japanese citizens felt when the bombs were dropped. A dark and terrifying story, like no other monster movie of its time. And man, did they do it. So the film opens up with a bunch of people on a boat before it's suddenly destroyed by a white flash of light, clearly inspired by the Lucky Dragon No. 5 story. Not long after that, we learned that even more boats are being shot down, completely obliterated, leaving many Japanese citizens confused and scared, but one of the old fishermen believes it's the work of an old legend. Afterwards, that very night, citizens by the shore are hit by some kind of storm. The ground shaking, people being crushed underneath rubble. The scene is very heavy, and it's only the beginning. Paleontologists and scientist Dr. Yamane are sent to the area, as many of the people who live by the water believe that this was more than just the storm. While investigating, we find out that there's suddenly radiation around the area, and a thought-to-be extinct sea creature from long ago, just there now. But there's no time to inspect any closer, as a warning bell begins to ring. They all go run up the hills until a large creature peers from the other side, Godzilla's first on-screen appearance, letting out a bone-chilling roar. Standing upright with spiky teeth and dorsal fins on its back, lizard-like skin almost looking charred or burned like the scars you get from the effects of nuclear blasts, and googly eyes. As outdated as it is, I still find it to be really effective and terrifying for the story. Afterwards, we learn that Godzilla seems to be an old prehistoric animal that was reawakened by nuclear testing, and was also possibly mutated in the process, which is why he has the ability to shoot atomic breath later on. Many politicians debate on whether or not the info should be released publicly, but one thing is certain. Godzilla must be killed, though Dr. Yamane disagrees. And speaking of Dr. Yamane, the human characters, I think that is one of, if not the greatest aspect of this film. Though this heavily focuses on Godzilla and his rampage later on, I feel it equally takes a lot of time to develop the human cast, and that's something I really liked in this. Seeing the people, their reactions and feelings and personal ties in the story makes me all the more invested in the characters and how they're affected by such a terrifying threat. Like Hideto, Emiko, who was Dr. Yamane's daughter, and probably the most important character, Daisuke Serizawa. Serizawa is a brilliant scientist who wants to invent things that could be beneficial to mankind, but harbors a deep secret that he can't tell anyone. He instead created a terrifying invention, the oxygen destroyer. Watching this, I really wasn't expecting such a great cast. Like I said, I really was expecting this to be a basic monster movie. Serizawa on his own is a really interesting character, but what the film does is create a really interesting relationships between these four main characters, because Dr. Yamane likes Serizawa and his work, so he wants his daughter Emiko to be with him, even though Emiko, she already secretly loves Hideto. The movie gives a really interesting love triangle kind of dynamic that I think is done really well, and I love the way it played out near the end. But the film focuses on more than just those few main characters. Along with the spectacle of Godzilla's rampage, which we'll touch on a bit later, it really focuses on the aftermath of his attacks. There's a lot of really disturbing and dark scenes of the humans' reactions during and after Godzilla's attacks. Some of the best, in my opinion, are scenes like the mother consoling her children, surrounded by flames as she reassures her children, saying that they'll reunite with their father soon in heaven. Or the scene where a little girl watches over her mother who slowly passes away, with the little girl crying afterwards. Or the scenes of children being tested for radiation poisoning. There's a large amount of heartbreaking scenes like those where it really left me shocked. Like, Ishiro Honda did not hold back. And the same goes for Godzilla's rampages. My god, these scenes are incredible. Godzilla ripping through each obstacle in his way, biting and stomping through it all, crushing everyone and everything beneath him. There's a lot of great shots where there are very dark shadows around Godzilla, surrounded by the bright white of the flames. I love the contrast, it just looks so awesome and spooky. These scenes are incredibly impactful and probably one of my favorite moments in Godzilla media so far. But after the devastating Godzilla attacks, Serizawa realizes that he has to use his invention and kill Godzilla, but not without burning his research first. Later on, Godzilla is located underwater by the Navy. Serizawa decides to go in the water, planning to set off the oxygen destroyer to finally kill this monster that is Godzilla. But as Serizawa encounters the creature, turning on the oxygen destroyer, he refuses to come back up, cutting off a part of his underwater suit, erasing not only Godzilla, but also his greatest invention by getting rid of the one man who knew how to create it, himself. So that mankind can never take his ideas, creating another weapon as dangerous as the atomic bomb. But before Serizawa leaves us, he leaves the main characters one final wish. And then Godzilla is dead. And that's it really, there's no celebration. The movie ends in a surprisingly somber way. Dr. Yamane even saying that if they keep experimenting with deadly weapons, another Godzilla may appear. Once again, using the monstrous creature as a metaphor for the fear of nuclear testing, attacks, and its potential consequences. And that's how the film ends, the original Godzilla. And I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I genuinely never expected this to end up the way it did. The original Godzilla is more than just a monster movie, it's a message. Using at the time Japan's biggest fears and anxieties, Ishiro Honda delivered a powerful symbolic story, warning mankind about the dangers of nuclear power. Godzilla is not some big lizard like I expected that explodes things, or an apex predator like in the legendary film. A quote by Ishiro Honda himself actually says, "If Godzilla had been a dinosaur or some other animal, he would have been killed by just a cannonball. But if he were equal to an atomic bomb, we wouldn't know what to do. So, I took the characteristics of an atomic bomb and applied them to Godzilla." End quote. He's a being of mass destruction. He's the dangers of nuclear weapons taken a monstrous form, mirroring and referencing the bombings from World War II. And I think Honda did a phenomenal job at showing exactly that. Ever since originally watching this movie in March and slowly writing this video, this movie has stayed in the back of my mind. I constantly thought back about how great of a movie it was, not just because, well, it's Godzilla, but also because of how deep it was, especially for what political message it says during the early 50s, barely a decade after the nuclear bombs had fallen on Japan. The 1954 Godzilla is a film that honestly nails everything it tries to achieve. Like I said at the start, I find this movie to be a phenomenal work of allegorical art. And I can't wait to watch more Godzilla media and see how the character's gone from monster to hero and back to his roots with films like Shin and Minus One. Editing Alex here. I started writing this in March, so obviously I've seen more Godzilla stuff. I watched Shin Godzilla and Minus One. Wow. I have a whole review for Minus One over on my TikTok, and Shin Godzilla, I might make a video on that in like a year, I don't know. But that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe, since our current goal is to hit 5K before the end of the year.
It ain't hard to tell, I excel, then prevail. The mic is contacted, I attract clientele. My mic check is life or death, breathing a sniper's breath. I